Hey, it's Brandon from Screen Love Affair, and today I want to talk about the new Fantastic Four First Steps movie, the directed by Matt Shakman version, the 2025 version, the MCU version. First of all, I want to say that the gang is busy in Montreal doing their Fantasia Fest coverage, and I'll be joining them later this week. However, for now, it's just going to be me doing a little fun alternative format here, talking about my thoughts on it. Probably won't get a full podcast episode on it, even though I probably could have done one myself. It's going to be a brief 15-ish minute video with some spoilers near the end, but don't worry, I'll give you ample warning. So without further ado, let's talk about the Fantastic Four First Steps. Right out of the gate, immediate first impression, I was in love with the set design and production design behind this movie. It has this retro futurism vibe that you see in like the Jetsons, where stuff is like 1960s, but also like elevated and more fun. Think like the Call of Duty ray gun kind of thing. Really good choices. I love seeing conversation pits in a modern setting, you know. The Baxter Building apartment is probably the best interpretation we've ever got of it. The first hour of the movie shows a lot of the, almost like a montage of how cool the city is, the world is, how well the characters are beloved, how fun the apartment is, how cool Reed Richards' lab is. That first hour whizzes by, and it is incredibly enjoyable, and again, they really show you how realized the world is. So all in all, the highest praise probably goes into the production design. I think the costumes, the color schemes, the sets, all the fun vehicles and production that went into that, top tier. I think it really stands alone as one of the most unique looking Marvel movies of the last decade or two even. Definitely feels like a standalone Marvel movie because it doesn't have as much connective tissue to the MCU as you would think. I won't get into that quite yet, but yeah, you don't have to worry about like Iron Man or Captain America showing up to save the day. This is very much a Fantastic Four movie, and I think it stands alone pretty well. Now, I was a really big fan of the original 2005 Fantastic Four, and I think I saw Rise of the Silver Surfer 6 or 7 times in theaters. It was just always on, and I would always go to the movie theater, sneak from one show to another. And oftentimes at an AMC 30, there would be an hour gap. So I would just wander into Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, hang out there for an hour, catch the second act, and go see something else. So 2007 was a big year for young Brandon, and I saw a lot of Fantastic Four. So as I said, being a fan of the first movie, where they have a lot more of this corny vibe with Reed Richards showing off his stretchiness right out of the gate. Now, when we talk casting, I would say that this is probably the best interpretation of some of these characters, in my opinion. I think Vanessa Kirby does a great Sue Storm. I think she has the most to do in this movie, and of all the Sue Storms in previous incarnations of the Fantastic Four on the big screen. When you compare her especially to the Jessica Alba version, which again I really liked and was definitely very sexy, but they also kind of did that 2000s thing where they were always trying to find an excuse for her invisibility to wear off at the wrong time, or have a moment where she can go invisible but her clothes can't, so she has to strip naked in New York. And I think that was fun for the era, but this movie definitely dials in that sexiness. It's definitely not nearly as horny as those earlier 2000s movies, especially talking about Joseph Quinn playing the new Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. I think Chris Evans' character, when he played the Human Torch, was really fun and kept the vibe of those movies up, because he was always kind of the comic relief. The way he would, combust and burn through his clothes, and then have the same kind of, again, sexiness that Jessica Alba had, where he's getting clothesless in every other scene because of his powers malfunctioning. I thought it was a neat parallel. People always bring up the sexualizing Jessica Alba, but Chris Evans got pretty naked in those movies too. So to see Joseph Quinn take that character and give him some of the riz that Chris Evans had, but dial it way down to be a little bit more of an intellectual, a bit more of a younger brother, less of just this horn dog. I thought that was an okay way to do it, and it really worked for me. He had a lot of heart in this movie, more than I think Chris Evans ever did. It's funny that we get this interpretation of the Human Torch after seeing him return in Deadpool for that surprise cameo. So I kind of like that, the torch has been passed, so to speak. So I'd say Jennifer Garner's Silver Surfer looks way better than the trailers showed her to be, beats the 2007 version, and I would say it's the sexiest interpretation of the Silver Surfer so far. Now let's talk about the thing about the thing. My new favorite thing is I really like Ebon Moss Eben Moss Bacharach, the guy from The Bear, the cousin in The Bear. I really like that he's got that kind of like New Yorker, like, hey, old cousin, like the thing he does in The Bear. I think it kind of works for the Ben Grimm we see on screen here. No real complaints. I don't think his role was nearly as important as, say, the Michael Chiklis one was in the 2005 version, you know, where he was the heart and soul about losing his humanity and trying to adjust after the accident. Again, this is a much more realized world where they've had 4 years to deal with, you know, the aftermath of their, you know, cosmic radiation adjustment. It is a little weird that I find Reed Richards beating himself up still 4 years later, and there's so many shoehorn moments where it's like, don't beat yourself up, kid. But yeah, I don't know. I did like the Thing in this movie. He's very cute and very charming. He's a bit more of a homebody. He doesn't have all the accolades that the other heroes do because he doesn't really get out that much, it seems. I think they did a very good job subtly coloring him in without giving him too much spotlight, but I did wish I got more out of him. I really like that he had that relationship with the girl from The Russian Doll and Orange is the New Black. I forget her name. But I really like seeing him kind of have that will they, won't they with her. I kind of wish there was more there. But again, you know, less is more sometimes, especially lately when we be getting these 2.5, 3 hour blockbusters. So I'm glad they showed some restraint. When it comes to Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards, I do like how he is a lot more serious and how he really dials in, and you know, the weight of his intellect is really shown. He definitely has some echoes of like Tony Stark and the Iron Man movies. When Ultron comes about, you know, he wants to protect the world from itself, but it's a burden to be that smart, and you see how he has to live with the worst case scenario and essentially be the opposite of an optimist and realize there's a lot bad that could go wrong. And there's a lot of ways where you kind of wonder if he is you know, okay, because he seems like there's a lot going on behind the surface, and I can appreciate that, but I feel like there's some missed opportunities to make him do some fun, stretchy stuff. I would have loved just a little more stretchiness from him. You know, the Thing had a couple moments where he got to pick a car up, he got to smash a building or two. Pedro's stretchiness really didn't come in that much until like the end, but you know, he uses it. It's not like a lot of the discussion online was like, we don't see any stretching in the trailer, they're not going to do it, it's a weird power, it's always been weird. I've seen people say like the best version of Fantastic Four is just The Incredibles, a family with superpowers, and I like that take, and part of it is because they think it's better to have a woman be stretchy because a man being stretchy is creepy. So I could see why there was less stretchiness when they're trying to make this a more serious, grounded approach. But also it's like, I could have used at least one or two scenes where he does something really clever with a finger stretched out that you didn't quite realize, or I don't know, something, you know. But again, I'll try to get into my nitpicks on the spoiler half of this video. I really think I like Pedro Pascal in almost everything he's in. However, I'm starting to feel like he is in everything. We put a poll up recently this week asking, is Pedro Pascal fatigue a thing? If superhero fatigue exists, I feel like Pedro Pascal fatigue must exist at some point. And that being said, this movie does reinvigorate the genre a little bit for me. Between this and Superman being these colorful, fully realized worlds we get dropped right in the middle to, it elevates my immediate enjoyment knowing I don't have to have a first act origin story speed run. I like that. I really like where the superhero stuff has been going lately. It feels like a very positive trend compared to, again, especially the 2015 Fantastic Four, the Fan Four Stick, where that was like this very grim looking thing. I think if you put like a side by side of Man of Steel and Fan Four Stick to the current posters of the, you know, Superman and Fantastic Four movies, you can see the color difference and just like the optimistic difference between the two. Really like that. I really like this trend. Ultimately, to summarize my Fantastic Four first steps thoughts without spoiling anything, I would say that it is a really, really fun watch. I saw it in D-Box, which is kind of like the 4DX, like shaky chairs in my local Cineplex. So 3D opening Friday night. They were already sold out of the Galactus popcorn buckets that were like $80. So I just settled on the cup. The first hour especially felt like a really fun ride. The cosmic stuff they do when they go into outer space, this really doesn't feel like Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, like it is an MCU movie without any real MCU crossover. I did find like so much was cut out of the movie, like some of the scenes, the way they slammed together, you know, an argument followed by immediate resolution, especially in that like late second act, was a bit clunky. You know, when you find out they cut out all of John Malkovich's scenes from this, you can start to see that they maybe left a lot on the cutting room floor to make this movie tighter. mostly for the better, but I did feel like I left wanting a little more out of it. But all in all, really enjoyed it. So I would highly recommend seeing it. My only gripe and downside is that there's a few nitpicks in the spoiler half of the video I'll get to. If you're an MCU fan that's been really, really out of it, I think since Ant-Man Quantumania and then watching the Falcon Captain America movie that came out this year, I've been so checked out. I've been like absolutely done with Marvel. I saw the Thunderbolts and I didn't even like it that much. Like, I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was like, we're so back. I just thought it was an improvement over the Captain America movie with Sam Wilson. So compared to the Thunderbolts, I think this movie is far better in the fact that it feels like such a better, unique property, and it's just more fun, more creative, especially because Captain America was always also the more grounded, like, cerebral spy thriller version of the MCU. So it's nice to have this, again, retrofuturism, Jetsons style Earth with this fun cast of characters. So definitely go see it. I recommend it more than the Thunderbolts. I'm not sure if I liked it as much as Superman. That's a big conversation question to ask on a podcast, not for the 15-minute video. So go check it out, but we're about to get into spoilers. Spoiler talk. All right, so now that we're alone here and there's nobody watching that hasn't seen the movie, and I think the first thing I want to say from a viewing experience is when you watch the post-credit scene of the Thunderbolts and you see the Fantastic Four ship booms into the atmosphere through, the clouds, and the Fantastic Four have entered the MCU, I was really expecting that paid off in this movie. And I'm shocked it did not, because otherwise, this doesn't really connect to the main MCU, up front at least. The only connective tissue is the post-credit scene where a unseen, unmasked Doctor Doom talks to the grown-up or 4-year-old version of the child of Susan Storm and Reed Richards. So here we go. So my big thing is I was expecting them to teleport away to our main Earth timeline, or maybe when they give birth to the child in that crazy outer space chase. I was really expecting something to tie in that scene in this movie selfishly. I feel like, they've left this to a bigger movie, maybe, probably Doomsday. But I did leave being like, how does this connect? Where do we go from here? And I'm excited because I feel like that is kind of how I felt in the early days of the MCU. But yeah, the second post-credit scene is just like a commercial for the TV show that's in universe of the Fantastic Four. It was cute, but I remember everybody in the theater went, oh, because the Doctor Doom thing was so much bigger. Now, I've been glossing over this, but yeah, a big part of this movie is Sue Storm being pregnant and having a child with Reed Richards. They have Franklin Richards, which I know is in the comics a much bigger deal. He's a, omnipotent, godlike, powerful cosmic being, and that's hinted at in this movie. Galactus 3D scans Sue Storm pregnant in outer space. Again, saying that sentence, I'm like, what a fun movie that was. They go dimension hopping almost, like they travel at light speed in some interstellar type vehicle, which is cool again. And they go to find Galactus. They see him in action once the threat's been made that he's coming for their Earth. Like, these are very active protagonists. There's just not a countdown that they're waiting. They go out of their way. They go on a month-long space voyage while Sue Storm's pregnant to fight Galactus on his terms. It's like we bring the fight to him or he brings it to us. So they go to him. They get tractor beamed into the ship. And now they got to talk to Galactus, and he's like, I want your baby to take my job because I am tired of doing it. And he's the only powerful being in the universe that I can do that with. Sue Storm's like, no. And they fight for their life to escape. And it turns into one of the most tense chase scenes later in the movie. And I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, I did keep wondering, that's the ship that ends up in the Thunderbolts. So when they slingshot around the black hole and she gives birth to this hinted at cosmic being, I was really expecting it to pop off or switch gears. And I'm kind of glad it didn't, because that means they would have abandoned their well-established Earth to die to Galactus. So they get home, and as soon as they start talking about find me a lever, Archimedes, find me a lever and I will move the world. And, they're doing the teleportation thing. Now, this is where the movie gets interesting, but a little bit more flawed for me. I like the idea that she's not sacrificing her child. She's, I think pragmatically, and Reed Richards is the bad guy for this at one point where he has had to think about that. What if we just give up the baby to save the whole world? I did find it really interesting that the tone now goes from this like kind of fun family adventure into what felt like a Roland Emmerichsen like doomsday movie where the whole world is doomed and they're all banding together in a very short amount of time to solve the problem. And in this case, it's teleport the world out of Galactus's reach or further away so they can buy more time. And, you know, it has this big theme of coming together. I think that's prevalent throughout the movie. And in this sequence, they come together pretty quick. They build all these massive teleporters. They conserve energy because it needs a lot of power. Like it's cool. And then Jennifer Garner's Silver Surfer comes in, destroys them all, and then it comes down to one final confrontation with one teleporter left in New York City in Times Square outside the Baxter Building. And Johnny Storm finally has decoded her language that they established. And it felt kind of weird at the start when, like, even before this was popping off, he was in his room listening to a record recording of the oldest language on Earth. And they don't really explain it, they just show it, and then they explain it later, and you're like, I don't know if it felt weird. I was expecting at least one scene with him at a bar, him being kind of fun or more publicity-oriented. Instead, they got him being a quiet, pensive nerd thinking about the lost languages of time and how they have the oldest recordings in history, and how he just sits in his room vibing in his lounge chair. I was like, a bit odd. But that comes back because he has to decode Jennifer Gardner's language, Silver Surfer's, to tell her, like, everybody misses you. Thanks for sacrificing yourself to be the Silver Surfer. And he kind of Naruto Takno Jutsu's her to essentially realize the wrong she's done and, like, stop trying to inhibit them from, you know, stopping Galactus. So he kind of neutralizes her with, like, the classic, like, remember your friends and family, believe it type thing. So, like, again, for a kid's movie, I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine, you know, but it did feel like I was expecting more out of that, more action, or like maybe a little less clunkily handled. That did drag it down a little for me. So yeah, when the big teleporting scheme fails, they have one left in Times Square. They have the bright idea to get Galactus to come to Times Square and hop in the teleporter to teleport him, you know, teleport one giant space god versus a planet. And immediately, especially with the trailer and seeing the scale of Galactus throughout this whole movie, my thoughts are that guy is way too big for the teleporter, but they make it work. However, the ways that they make it work, again, these are just nitpicks. I really like the movie. But, you know, they show Johnny Storm doing a switch and bait where he blasts his eyes. And I do like that Fantastic Four can mess up Galactus pretty good. Like, I think if they actually worked together, they had a plan to just fight him outright, they would actually probably get some good leeway. And they do at some points. Like, Reed's even able to open up one of his, you know, back pieces of armor that causes him, like in a boss battle, to, like, lose stamina. So I think that was cool. I like how Johnny, like, fired out his eyes and, like, roughed him up. I like how, again, the thing collapsed the building, the thing where he runs through and hits the support columns in the trailer. Really good stuff. But their plan is, like, do a bait and switch with the baby in Times Square, and it almost works, and it's really funny, comedic, when he almost steps into the thing. And when you see how much effort they put in to hold him in the teleporter, you're like, how was this going to work out in the first place? If you activate it, he could just step back out. And when it culminates in this big chase and stuff, it's like they should have just had Johnny flame on and get the baby out of his hand while Sue was holding him. Why'd they tell Johnny to go to the teleporter and Reed Richards to scale several buildings and swing across the city? It's like Johnny could have almost done both. Like, his flying and fire abilities are some of the best. So again, just nitpicks. Sue makes the ultimate sacrifice, but Johnny wanted to make the ultimate sacrifice and push Galactus into the teleporter. You know, says, Uncle Johnny says, I love you. And he blasts off into hit Galactus. And then Jennifer Gardner, Silver Surfer, bumps him out of the way after, again, he Takno Jutsu'd her so good earlier that she's like, no, I will sacrifice myself and do the right thing finally. Knocks him in, portal closes, Sue Storm's basically dead from using too much cosmic power. Ultimately, the baby kind of pulls a Jack from The Incredibles, and his powers inexplicably resuscitate Sue Storm. And I'm really glad it didn't end on, like, a huge bummer note, because it definitely could have. So all in all, I really did like the movie, but I had a handful of big nitpicks through the end, and I didn't feel like I had as much fun as I could have with it. But I did love the kaiju-esque finale. I did love the inclusion of Paul Walter Hausen. That's Shay's doppelganger, in case you guys are wondering. And yeah, I'm really glad I got to talk about it here with you guys on the Screen Love Affair channel. This video is a little bit all over the place. I hope you found some value in it. I hope you liked it. Feel free to let us know in the comments, like and subscribe, all that YouTuber crap. But thanks for watching, and we hope to share more reviews soon. Check out our podcast episodes coming up for more Fantasia Festival stuff. If you like this, listen to our longer versions of like reviews on F1 or, you know, the big Superman release last week. Yeah, if you're into this, we'll probably do more, but we hope you like the video, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.